Have you ever wondered why some people suddenly change the way they treat you? The moment you stop being easy to control? What if I told you they don't just walk away? They adapt. They manipulate. And here's the real twist. The more free you are, the more threatened they feel. Why? Let's find out. They don't need chains to control you, just guilt, rumors, and a few twisted words. Sometimes you won't even notice. While you're just living your life, being true to yourself, there are people working behind the scenes, subtly, patiently, trying to pull you back under their influence. It's not always loud. Often, it's a whisper behind your back, a subtle shift in how someone looks at you, a message left unsaid but deeply felt. These are the quiet psychological games many fall victim to without even realizing. But what if true strength was not about controlling others, but simply refusing to be controlled? Stoic philosophy teaches exactly that. It reminds us that real power begins when we stop reacting, stop justifying, and start choosing, freely, fearlessly. But here's a question worth asking. Are you truly free? Or are you still unconsciously playing by someone else's rules? Let me tell you a story that might help you see this more clearly. This is the story of Ethan, a man who, like many of us, believed that living with integrity would earn him respect. And at first, it did. Ethan was independent. At work, he couldn't be intimidated. Among friends, he stood firm against manipulation. Within his family, he drew clear boundaries. He thought being strong and honest would inspire others. But then, something shifted. People who once admired him began to whisper behind his back. His boss, frustrated by Ethan's confidence, labeled him uncooperative. Friends who used to seek his advice now called him arrogant. Even family members began to treat him like he was the problem. Confused and hurt, Ethan turned to his old mentor, Mr. Carter, a retired businessman known for his calm wisdom. "Why?" Ethan asked. "Why does standing my ground turn people against me?" Mr. Carter didn't answer right away. Instead, he took Ethan to his backyard. There, in the soft afternoon light, stood two horses, one tied firmly to a post, the other moving freely across the yard. "Watch," said Mr. Carter. As he approached the tied horse, it remained calm, predictable. But the free one, alert, cautious, took a step back, uneasy. "People are just like these horses," Mr. Carter explained. "When they can tie you down, they feel safe. But when you roam freely, when they can't predict or control you, they feel threatened. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your freedom exposes the prison they've built around themselves." Ethan stared, quietly understanding. "They won't try to set you free," Mr. Carter continued. "Instead, they'll try to break you. They'll call you selfish, arrogant, difficult. Not because you are, but because you remind them of what they're too afraid to become." That night, Ethan saw the truth. The backlash wasn't about who he was. It was about who they weren't ready to be. And now, let's dive deeper. Because what happens next, what they do after they fail to control you, is even more dangerous. Continuing from before, Ethan's story showed us one simple truth. When people can't control you, they often turn against you. But instead of fighting back, he made a different choice, one that changed everything. He stopped explaining himself, stopped chasing validation, stopped letting guilt dictate his decisions. And in that silence, something powerful unfolded. The manipulators, they vanished. The insecure? They quietly drifted away, but the truly strong, they remained because real strength always recognizes real strength. And now, let's begin with the first lesson. 1. They try to manipulate you. So what actually happens when someone realizes they can't control you? They don't give up. They shift gears. They manipulate. You see, there are people who crave control, not just over situations, but over other people. They want to shape your choices, direct your emotions, mold your behavior to suit their comfort. But once they realize you're not easily bent, that you won't be molded to fit their agenda, they don't walk away. No, they get subtle. They begin to play with your emotions. They make you feel guilty. They create pressure. They blur the line between affection and obligation. They'll say things like, "After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Or flatter you with praise like, "You're so good at this. I don't know how I'd survive without you," just to keep you hooked. If that doesn't work, they shift again. Urgency, drama, or even playing the victim. Suddenly, their happiness feels like your responsibility. But don't be fooled. It's not about love or respect. It's about influence, quiet, persistent, hidden beneath layers of guilt and charm. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a shield. As Lao Tzu once said, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." That's the secret. Self-mastery. True strength doesn't come from overpowering others. It comes from mastering your own reactions. Because manipulators feed off emotions, your fear, your guilt, your hesitation. But the moment you stop reacting, you break the cycle. Think of it like a chess game. Every move they make is meant to trap you, to spark a response. But what if you don't move? What if you simply observe? They lose. Because the most powerful move you can make is not playing their game at all. I once knew someone who always found a way to twist the story in their favor. One day, they asked me for a favor that didn't sit right with me. I calmly said no, without guilt, without explanation. And for the first time, they didn't know what to do. And that brings us to the next lesson, because manipulation is just the beginning. What happens when that no longer works? What comes next? Let's turn the page and find out. Previously, we saw how manipulators lose their grip the moment you stop playing their game. No arguments, no explanations, just quiet strength. But what happens when silence isn't enough? When they realize they can't twist your emotions anymore, they turn to something darker. I remember it clearly. They sighed, gave me a disappointed look, and said, "Wow, I thought we were closer than that." For a second, it hit me, that creeping guilt, the urge to explain myself, to prove I wasn't being cold or selfish. But then I paused, and instead of defending my choice, I simply smiled and said, "I know what you're doing." That one sentence shifted everything. Their face changed instantly, surprise, discomfort, even a little fear. They tried to laugh it off, muttered something awkward, but I didn't engage. I let the silence speak. That was the last time they ever tried to manipulate me. And that's the truth. Once you see manipulation for what it is, it loses its power over you. So how do you deal with people like that? First, recognize the tactics. If someone constantly makes you feel guilty, pressured, or responsible for their emotions, pause and ask yourself, is this a genuine request or manipulation in disguise? Second, stay calm and stay firm. The more neutral your response, the less control they have. Emotional reactions feed manipulation. Calmness starves it. And third, refuse to play. You don't owe anyone a dramatic defense. You don't need to justify every decision. A simple, confident no is enough. Then, move on. In the end, manipulation only works if you give it fuel. Stop reacting. Stop explaining. And most importantly, stop carrying guilt for emotions that aren't yours. Master yourself. Hold your ground. And remember, your choices are yours alone. But what happens when manipulation fails and you no longer react? They start spreading lies. Let's talk about it. In the last part, we explored how lies lose their grip the moment you stop defending yourself. Silence, in that case, isn't weakness. It's victory. So what happens when false rumors fail to shake you? When your calm exposes their noise? They play their next card, the victim. B-U-Z. Silence is powerful. The moment you stop caring about what people say behind your back, they lose all control over you. Because the truth, it doesn't need a defense. It lives and breathes through your actions. I still remember a time when someone purposely spread false rumors about me. My first instinct? Defend myself. Set the record straight. Correct every single lie. But then I took a breath and did something completely different. I stopped reacting. Instead of explaining myself, I stayed grounded in who I truly was. I focused on my actions, not their words. And slowly, the narrative began to shift. People started seeing the difference between what they heard and what they saw. And the person spreading the lies, they exposed themselves without me lifting a finger. Because that's the thing about lies. They burn fast and die quickly. But truth, it endures. So how do you deal with people like that? First, don't engage. Arguing gives their lies power. Attention is fuel. Stay silent. Stay still. Let the lies collapse on their own. Second, let your character do the talking. Time always reveals the truth. You don't need to defend what is already real. And third, remember this. People who spread lies often tell you more about who they are than about who you are. Don't let their words define you. In the end, false accusations only carry weight if you hold them. Release them. Stand tall. Let silence do the heavy lifting, because those who build their reputation on lies always crumble in the end. And when that fails, when lies don't break you and silence doesn't rattle you, they switch strategies again. They start playing the victim. In the previous part, we saw how playing the victim is just another manipulative tactic, used when all else fails. But what happens when their performance doesn't earn applause? When their cries for sympathy don't get the attention they hope for? They change tactics again. This time they try something colder and far more calculated. Every time they were confronted, they slipped into victim mode. And then one day, it happened again. They had crossed a clear boundary repeatedly. So finally, I stood my ground. I spoke up calmly and directly. But instead of taking responsibility, they did something else. They acted shocked. They twisted the story. They ran to others and told them I had lashed out, that I was the one who hurt them. And just like that, I became the villain in their story. At first, my instinct was to defend myself, to explain, to make everyone see my side. But then I remembered, that's what they wanted, a reaction, a stage, a scene. So I did the opposite. I stayed quiet. I didn't argue. I let my actions do the talking, and something powerful happened. Little by little, people began to see through the act. The drama unraveled, because the truth always shines brighter than the performance. Here's how you deal with people like this. First, don't engage. Arguing only traps you in their story, and in their version, you're always the villain. Second, let their actions speak for themselves. The more they twist the truth, the clearer their intentions become. And third, protect your energy. You don't have to explain or prove anything to people who already know who you are. At the end of the day, manipulators use victimhood as a weapon, but only if you give them an audience. The best response? Stay grounded. Stay silent. Let reality speak, because in the end, truth always outlasts the performance. I saw no way. But when victimhood fails, they reach for a darker tool. They try to isolate you. Let's talk about that. Previously, we uncovered one of the most calculated tactics manipulators use, isolating you from your support system. But once you see through their game, once you choose connection over division, their influence starts to crumble. So what's the key to protecting your energy in moments like these? It's simple. Stay close to those who lift you up and walk away from those who drag you down. You see, the people who truly care about you will never need to manipulate you. True friends won't plant doubts or divide you from others. They stand with you. They listen. They see you. I remember someone I used to know, someone who slowly, quietly tried to turn people against me. It didn't happen all at once. It started with subtle comments. I don't know. Can you really trust them? Then came the twisting of my words, small exaggerations here and there. At first, I was angry, frustrated. I wanted to confront them. I wanted to defend myself, to expose the truth. But then I realized something. The more I fought back, the more power I handed them. So instead, I focused inward. I doubled down on my real relationships, the ones built on trust, not gossip. I stayed true to my values, consistent in my actions, and let my integrity speak louder than their whispers. And over time, it worked. People began to notice. Those who truly knew me stayed. The ones who believed the lies, they faded away, because they were never really mine to begin with. So how do you handle people who try to isolate you? First, stay calm. Every dramatic reaction is just fuel for their fire. Second, nurture your true connections. The people who genuinely know your heart won't be fooled for long. And finally, don't chase the ones who turn their backs. If someone can be swayed so easily, they were never meant to walk your journey. At the end of the day, manipulators fear your independence. They try to cut you off to regain control. But they can't break what is unshaken. So stay strong, stay connected. Because real relationships, they don't fall apart because of someone else's lies. But what if they don't try to isolate you? What if instead they try to break your confidence? Let's talk about that next. Previously, we exposed how manipulators try to isolate you from your support network. But when that doesn't work, they often shift tactics again. This time, they go after something even more personal: your confidence. Because if they can't control the people around you, they'll try to make you doubt yourself. You know what's dangerous about self-doubt? It doesn't come crashing in all at once. It starts small: a quiet question, a raised eyebrow, a comment wrapped in concern. Are you sure that's the right move? That seems kind of risky, doesn't it? And just like that, you begin second-guessing yourself. Not because you're wrong, but because someone wants you to feel like you are. That's the thing about confidence. It's not about being perfect. It's about trusting your judgment. But manipulators, they shake that trust on purpose. Because the moment you hesitate, they regain control. Here's the key. Recognize the pattern and keep walking. This is where Stoic wisdom shines through. Epictetus once said, "A person's worth is not determined by external approval. True confidence doesn't come from applause or agreement. It comes from within, from clarity, conviction, and trust in your own process." I remember a time when someone constantly questioned every decision I made. No matter what choice it was, big or small, they always had a comment. "Really? You think that's a good idea?" At first, I explained myself. I tried to prove I had thought it through. But then I realized they weren't asking because they cared. They were doing it to plant doubt. So one day, I changed my response. When they asked, "Are you sure?" I simply replied, "Yes, I am." That was it. No long explanation. No debate, just calm certainty. And guess what? They had nothing left to say. Because confidence doesn't argue. It just stands firm. So how do you protect your confidence from people like this? First, trust yourself. If your decision comes from logic, experience, and values, stand by it. Second, stop over-explaining. The more you explain, the more they look for cracks in your thinking. And finally, remember this. Doubt is their weapon, not your truth. Just because someone questions you doesn't mean you're wrong. At the end of the day, your confidence is your power. Yes, people will challenge it. Yes, they'll test you, but they only succeed if you let them. So stand tall, trust your voice, and never let their doubt become your own. Says but if that doesn't work, if they still can't control you, they'll use one of the oldest tricks in the book. They'll try to provoke you emotionally. Let's talk about it next. Previously, we uncovered how manipulators will try to provoke your emotions when logic and control no longer work. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Your calmness is their defeat. Think of it like fire and wind. Your emotions, the flame, their insults, their jabs, their drama, the wind. The more you react, the more the fire grows. But what happens when you stop feeding it? The fire fades, the chaos loses its heat. That's why your calmness isn't just admirable. It's your greatest weapon. Because if they can't make you explode, they have nothing left to use against you. This is exactly where Stoic wisdom lights the path. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the essence, refusing to mirror their behavior. When you stay grounded in the face of provocation, you steal their power. You remain composed. They walk away, frustrated, not victorious. I remember a time when someone really pushed my buttons. They insulted me, twisted my words, even dug up past mistakes, all just to get a reaction. And trust me, I could feel the heat rising, my chest tightening, my jaw clenching. But instead of snapping, I took a breath and simply said, "Interesting perspective." That's it. No defense, no drama. They froze. Why? Because they had no script for calm. They were expecting fireworks, but instead, they got silence wrapped in strength. That was the moment I realized. Staying calm isn't weakness. It's power under control. So how do you handle people like this? First, recognize the game. If someone's clearly trying to provoke you, stop and ask, do they want a real conversation or just a reaction? Second, manage your response. When your emotions start to rise, pause, breathe. Let the moment pass through you. And third, walk away from pointless battles. Not every insult deserves your energy. Sometimes the strongest stance is to say nothing at all, because at the end of the day, your emotions belong to you. And when someone tries to light your fire, let them burn themselves out instead. Remember, the strongest person in the room is the one who refuses to be controlled. Now, let's move to a tactic that's more subtle, but just as revealing. What happens when they stop trying to beat you and start trying to be you? Let's talk about it next. In the last part, we explored how manipulators, when they can no longer provoke or control you, may resort to something more subtle. They start copying you. But behind the imitation lies a simple truth. They're not trying to become better than you. They're just trying to keep up. Instead of finding their own path, they follow yours, step by step, hoping that by mimicking your journey, they'll somehow absorb your success. But here's the truth. No matter how closely they copy, they'll always be a step behind. Because imitation can only mimic the surface. It can never touch the substance. Think of it this way. A shadow may follow the sun, but it can never shine on its own. It moves when the light moves, but it doesn't glow. That's the difference. Copying might fool people for a while, but it will never replace originality. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Seneca once said, "Character, not imitation, defines a person." Your value doesn't lie in what you do. It lies in who you are. Someone can replicate your words, your style, even your strategies. But they'll never replicate your mind, your experience, or your authenticity. I remember someone in my circle who copied almost everything I did. Every time I tried something new, they followed. If I launched a new project, suddenly they were inspired to do the same. At first, it annoyed me. It felt like my hard work was being stolen. But then, I noticed something important. The more they copied, the more obvious it became that they had nothing original of their own. So one day I changed my rhythm. I made an unexpected move, something outside my usual pattern. And guess what? They didn't know what to do. They froze. Because when you're always following, you're never leading. That's when I realized imitation is proof that you're ahead. So how do you handle people like this? First, stop stressing about them. The fact that they're copying you means you're already leading. Second, keep evolving. The more you grow and change, the harder it becomes for them to keep up. And finally, understand this. Imitation isn't flattery. It's insecurity. They mimic you because they don't yet trust themselves enough to be original. At the end of the day, copies fade. But authenticity, that endures. So keep being yourself, keep leading. And let them struggle in your shadow, because no one can duplicate what makes you uniquely you. And now, let's move on to something a little darker. What if they're not copying you to grow, but secretly hoping you'll fail? Let's talk about that next. Previously, we talked about the subtle frustration of being copied, how imitation is often a sign that you're ahead. But what if the people around you aren't copying you to grow, but instead, quietly hoping you'll fail? Yes, let's talk about the ones who smile in your face, but silently count down the days until you fall. Some people don't support you. They pretend to. They nod at your ambition. They say, "I'm happy for you." But deep down, they're just waiting for the stumble, waiting for the failure. Waiting for the chance to whisper, "I knew it." But here's where their plan falls apart. Your success was never built on their approval. Think of it like a storm and a tree. A weak tree sways, cracks, and breaks in the wind. But a tree with deep roots, it doesn't matter how loud the storm gets, it stands tall. It endures. The people hoping for your failure, they're the wind. They push. They howl. They make noise. But they can't uproot you unless you allow it. Because the deeper your foundation, the less their opinions matter. And once again, Stoic wisdom guides the way. Epictetus once said, "Do not waste energy on those who hope for your downfall. Your focus should never be on proving others wrong. It should be on becoming the best version of yourself." I remember someone in my life like that. They seemed supportive, but their comments always came laced with doubt. "Are you sure this will work?" Or the classic, "Well, I hope you make it. Let's see." At first I brushed it off, but over time I realized they weren't cheering me on. They were quietly waiting for me to slip. And one day I did face a setback, and just like that, they pounced. "See? Told you it wouldn't be easy." That was the moment I saw clearly. They were never rooting for me. They were rooting against me. So I made a choice. I stopped explaining. I stopped looking for validation. I focused entirely on my own journey. And the result? I succeeded. And their silence spoke louder than all their fake encouragement ever did. So how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize the signs. If they're loud when you fail but quiet when you win, that's not support. That's a signal. Second, stop wasting energy trying to prove them wrong. Your journey is not their scoreboard. And finally, let success be your answer. Keep moving, keep rising. Because nothing unsettles them more than seeing you soar when they swore you would fall. At the end of the day, some people wait for your failure like it's a show. Don't give them the ending they're hoping for. Succeed anyway. Blast off. And now, we arrive at the final perspective, one that just might shift the way you see others, and even how you see yourself. In the previous part, we faced a harsh truth. Some people don't root for your rise, they wait for your fall. But now let's talk about a final powerful insight, one that doesn't come from outside forces, but from within. Number 8, the last truth. Real strength respects strength. Sometimes, the moment you stop being easy to control, people don't just leave. They fight back. They manipulate, lie, provoke, isolate, and try to crush your confidence. But here's the twist. The ones who truly matter, they don't walk away. They don't compete. They respect you. Because real strength doesn't feel threatened by another strong soul. It's drawn to it. I remember when I started setting boundaries and speaking up for myself. Not everyone liked it. Some backed off. Some talked behind my back. But a few, a rare few. They stayed. They respected my space, admired my clarity, and matched my energy. They didn't need me to shrink for them to shine. That's when I understood something powerful. You never lose the right people by being strong. You only lose the ones who benefited from your weakness. So how do you hold on to that strength? First, stop apologizing for your power. You weren't born to fit in someone else's comfort zone. Second, pay attention to who claps when you rise. The ones who celebrate your growth? Keep them close. And finally, stand tall, especially when you feel tempted to shrink. Because the right people won't ask you to be less. They'll challenge you to be more. So let's recap. When people can't control you, they don't just walk away. They manipulate, they spread lies, they play the victim. They try to isolate you, weaken your confidence, provoke your emotions, copy your every move, and sometimes they just sit back and hope you fail. But guess what? Every tactic they use reveals more about them than it does about you. Because your power lies in how you choose to respond, with grace, with wisdom, with calm strength. And in the end, you don't win by fighting back. You win by standing tall, by being unshakably you. So here's the final truth. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to shrink, and you certainly don't need to chase the ones who can't handle your light. Just keep walking. Keep rising, keep becoming, because those who are meant for you will rise with you, not against you. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Which part resonated with you the most? Your support means the world. It's what keeps this community growing, one truth at a time. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay grounded, stay powerful, stay you. Until next time.